Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of Live Your Yes Life. I'm Kaela, one of your co-hosts, and I am thrilled for our guest today. As you know, some weeks Lisa and I come together on this show, some weeks we do a solo episode, some weeks we have a guest like we do today. We always share tips and tricks and powerful interviews and behind the scenes to support you to go from living and wishing and hoping to actually living your best life. So I'm really, really honored to share our guest today, Elizabeth McNeil. I asked Elizabeth at the top of the call, what are just 3 things you want people to know about you? But you're going to get to know so much more about her. So here's what you should know about Elizabeth. She's a teacher, she loves to journal, and she's nerdy about biology, which I love to know because we can just feel the humanness of each other when we don't just share our what's the word I'm looking for? Like our CV, but we actually just get to share a little bit of the human behind us. And you're going to get to know who Elizabeth is to me, why I asked her to be our guest, and you're going to fall in love with her too. So hi, Elizabeth. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so I want to start by just giving folks a little context of how we know each other, and then I'll share why I asked you specifically to be a guest for this podcast. So we met through your son Robert's program, who you are on the team for. What is your role with Strength on Stages?
I am the program director for Strength on Stages.
Yes. So Strength on Stages, everyone, you're going to want to go check this out. Elizabeth, what is the website?
The website is strengthonstages.com.
Great. You are going to want to check out Strength on Stages if you are an entrepreneur, if you have a story to tell, if you have a voice, a message that you want to uplift and share in the world. So I had the honor of meeting Robert Hartwell, who owns Strength on Stages and is Elizabeth's son, a few years ago. We got to meet at this really cool retreat that I was at with who was my coach at the time, one of Robert's best friends. We were at Miraval, also a really amazing experience. And I fell in love with Robert, okay? Like he was amazing, incredible. And I went home and put on my vision board that I would get to work with him one day. And that day came this year. So yes, it's true. I literally put on my vision board that I would get to work with Robert. So that day came this year, and I joined Robert's Strength on Stages program, which was an incredible, incredible opportunity to work with Robert to executive produce my signature story, which we'll also put the link to that in the show notes so you can hear my story and see the work that Robert, some of the work he puts out in the world. There's so much more. We'll tell you more about it. And through that opportunity, I had the chance to meet Elizabeth. And yes, everything that Robert does, he has a show out on Max right now, which Elizabeth is featured on, called Breaking New Ground. Y'all, I am rewatching Max like I'm rewatching Breaking New Ground like it is my job. It is moving and transformational and powerful. And I emailed Robert and I was like, I'm taking notes. I'm not just watching for enjoyment and pleasure. Now I'm taking notes about what I'm reading. Okay, so that's the context of how we know each other. But now I want to share why I asked Elizabeth specifically to be here. Because I work with my mom too. And what often happens is someone will meet me first. Like they'll see me on stage somewhere or hear me on a podcast or see me on a Facebook Live, and they will tell me, Kaela, I love you. I just fell in love with you. I'm so glad that I got to get to know you, or I'm following along. And then they hear that my partner is my mom in this business. And what I know that they might not know is like, I know that you think you love me, but you would really love my mom, okay? Because like she's the one who made this. Like she had all this power inside of her. And so here's what I know. Like for as much as I love Robert, I really love Elizabeth because she is the one who had all of that inside of her to birth into the world. And so we've got to pay attention to the mamas and the parents who are giving us this gift of life. So Elizabeth, that's why we're here. I want to talk about you.
Well, Kaela, I really like that. I'm so enamored at how my presence in Robert's program brings about this same um, vibe that other people, and it just mesmerizes me because I'm just there to help and support, and I work from my heart, and I just have this uncanny ability to just gravitate towards kind people. And I just love the program, because the program that he does, because it just brings some of the kindest people. And that just fills my whole world with being able to help facilitate getting them what it is that they need in order to be successful in the program. And so I truly just, I love it. And I love that Robert has that same affinity to want to help people. And so I just love being a part of Strength on Stages. I love being a part on Tell Your Story at Hartwell House. His other program was the Broadway Collective. It was just amazing for children from the ages of 12 to 18, which is my specialty, running a program called Bold for children ages 12 to 18.
You do a fantastic job, and your contribution is powerful and meaningful. And I have to say, so, client testimonial, unsolicited client testimonial, I've worked with a lot of corporations that feel like a corporation. And that's not my experience of Strength on Stages. It is a corporation that feels, and my experience is that people matter, and that our goals and our dreams matter, and you're paying attention to the person that you're working with, which takes art. It's not something that every corporation has mastered. And I'm really grateful for your contribution because it really makes the experience incredible.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's first and foremost, that I believe that when you lead with kindness, that people become vulnerable into a space, and they feel that, and they get comfortable, and it brings about who they really are into the space, even though it may be an area or a sensitivity that they're not even familiar with. But because we've set up the program in such a way that we just bring our authentic selves and just exude with kindness, and then people fall right into being comfortable with following suit with what it is that Robert requires of them when they're in the space.
That's so beautiful. So let's talk about you. I want to go back and hear, before all this, before there was a partner and there was children and there was the careers you've had. What was the dream that was on your heart that you can tell has been just a thread that's carried you?
So I was raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I was one of six. And it's so interesting that you have me going back into this travel time, because my life is very different from my siblings. But I just had a love for the physical body, how it works, how it moves. I was really fascinated and very good in athletics. My dad was that person as well. So I excelled in athletics. And I just, when I grew up, I wanted to be a gym teacher. But Kayla, let me just tell you, it's so interesting how your parents or the people that raise you have such an influence in your life. And so I was like a middle child. I wasn't the oldest, but I was the second from the oldest. So I was somewhat of a middle child. And so I had very middle child tendencies. And so it was time for me to go off to college. And I was in a situation where I just needed to get out of Brooklyn. It was like the first opportunity, I'm going to just use my education. I'm going to get out of Brooklyn. No shade to Brooklyn, I mean, but I just knew for me to survive, I needed to be away from that environment. But I wanted to be a phys ed teacher. That was my dream. Oh my gosh, that was my dream. But that was not my mother's dream for me. It was so interesting. Back in the 60s, things were very different than they are today. And so my mom was like, absolutely not. A gym teacher? No. Their lifestyles are not what I approve of. So you have to be a doctor.
I love it.
I was like, oh, okay. So I honored everything that my mother said. I truly honored everything that my grandparents said because I loved and adored them. I was around them most of my young years. And so when she said that, I was like, all right, well, and the first college that accepted me, they had me lock, stock, and barrel, gone off to Pennsylvania to school. And I was a pre-med major. And there I was doing this pre-med and wanting to be um, a gym teacher. But when I got to biology, I really excelled really well. Chemistry was a stretch. I was excellent in my organic laboratory. I aced it. I did not ace the class, and the professor was like, "You are the first. No one has ever been here." Aced my laboratory, but didn't do so well in the class. And I was like, well, and he suggested I be a pharmacist, which not what I didn't want to count pills. So I took that degree of biology and went into the hospital for a job, my first job. I didn't even know because I wasn't under the medical biology program at school. I was under a pre-med program. So I didn't have a course called histology. And so when I got to this job, I just wowed them and they hired me as a histologist. And there I was.
And what is a
So a
histologist?
histologist is a person who studies the tissue of the human body. So it's the study of the human body. So let me give you a snapshot view of that because that's a different word. So if you were to go to the hospital and have a mole removed, that mole would then come into our laboratory, which is called the histology laboratory. It would then be prepared, and finally we'd have a microscopic slide of which we then give to the pathologist, and then he reads it and then he gives you the diagnosis. So the pathologist cannot really do his job unless he has a histologist. And so with that also came autopsies, which was fascinating. So I got to actually learn how to do autopsies and could do one in 45 minutes or less, which was amazing.
Wow. I am learning so much. This is fascinating. Please carry on.
Yeah, so I learned that and I was just so intrigued by it. But you had to be like cautious and careful with your words around people because as soon as you say that you cut up dead bodies, they're like, what? But I just loved it. I loved it. But even in a scenario like that, I learned that I have a very spiritual upbringing from my grandparents. And so I truly honor my higher power. And there were two in particular, two autopsies that I had to perform. One was over a gentleman who had died in a motorcycle accident. And I went into the morgue and I was preparing to start this autopsy over him. And I actually had to lay hands and just pray over his body to just calm the atmosphere because it was like his spirit just didn't know what happened because he died immediately. And so I just had to like pray into that space and it just calmed and I was able to then proceed. The only other time I had to pray like that was with a very young girl. Back then, it was the toxic shock syndrome had come out with the tampons way back, and there was a young girl, 15 years old, and I had to lay hands again just so I could get through. Plus, she was about the age of one of my boys, and that really touched my heart. And so I had to be, I just thank I'm thankful for my grandparents to have bestowed that upon me and given me that foundation. And so I believe that that being such a part of who I am, that when I say I journal and I read books, I'm a reader of books, but I love reading the Bible because I truly believe that that is your onset to success at the top of your day, is to actually read, engage, think, and journal. That to me is a success to your day. And so that's how I start each and every one of my days, because it's so vitally important for me to be able that I can lead a day at the top of the day with a successful day. Do we have tragedies in it? Sometimes, but for the most part, I think if you stay grounded and rooted, that your day will be exceptional.
That is such a gift. Thank you for sharing all of that. Something that I'm picking up on as we're having this conversation is this theme that there are many parts of you, as all of us. I believe that humans are dynamic, and something that feels unique about you is your willingness to let all the parts of you shine, to let the science mind of you shine, and the spirituality shine, and the business sense of you shine, and the mother, and all the parts. So has that always been so easy and natural to just bring every part of you to the table, or was that something that you learned or have practiced over the years?
That, Kayla, is something that I have to say that's truly part of who I am. And it just naturally comes up. When I teach young people, like my program Bold for young people is for them to have 7 foundational tools in order for them to lead their lives unapologetically. And so I believe that if we teach the younger generations of people, young people, how to believe in who it is that they are and to lead with kindness, they then have the ability to have conversation over the things of their life. And if we instill that in that first generation, and that becomes the fabric of their lives, when they have children, they will instill that into their children, and so on and so forth through the generations. So for me, it's imperative and it's so important that I lead with that, because that's naturally what it is that I do, think, and believe that that's why I was put here. That was my purpose. And I believe everybody has a purpose. And I believe that was uniquely my purpose. And that's how I raise my sons. That's how I teach my young people. That's how I even go into the rooms with the adult people. I just lead with kindness.
What would you say to, so most of our listeners are somewhere in this 30 to 60-ish age range, to someone who's listening and feels like there is a part of them that for whatever reason they've had to or they've chosen to kind of put on the back burner, and they feel like maybe they should lead with a certain part, and they're really craving bringing a dormant part of themselves to center stage? How does someone do that?
Well, one of the ways you can do that is, well, first of all, you can read for sure. There's so many self-help books, but I'm actually I took a course to help me understand or give me tools in order to be able to help other people or help myself be able to help other people. And so I would say that if you struggle with some areas in your life that are in your face and you're aware of them, then I feel like you could reach out and get help. We all need help from time to time. We all seek out help from, have a conversation with a friend, have a conversation with someone that may not know you as well, and but be a friend anyway. like they don't know your family history, but they feel comfortable in talking with you. So I think having conversation and using your words to um, express what it is that you're feeling is so vitally important, because otherwise we end up suppressing these situations, and then it turns into stress, and then this is not a good scenario for us on the back end of it. It's actually a short way of life. I believe being in nature is an excellent way to just succumb to nature and finding a way of walking yourself through different aspects of your life. I think that exercise is vitally important. I also, from the biology part of me, I truly believe that you need 7 to 8 hours of rest, and you need the water. You need all these things, but you really need community. So it's so vitally important. There's so many different groups out there to get yourself engaged with. I would plead for people to not succumb to being in a cocoon, but to actually be vulnerable enough to step outside of that space and research or find people in that same that will help walk you through.
I love that what you've shared is really foundational. And I actually just did a Facebook Live on this today. That so often people think if they want a certain thing, a certain result, or to bring another part of themselves to the table, that they need this like intense 100-step map where they're going to follow ABC. And the topic of my live was the same one. What you just shared is it's actually the foundation. We go back to the basics for everything that we want. Are we taking good care of ourselves? Are we nourishing ourselves? Are we getting in sunlight and nature? Are we around other people? It's that wholeness. When we have that wholeness inside of ourselves, then we can be whole and show up in that wholeness and bring the parts of ourselves and our dreams to life. And so that's really powerful. Shifting gears a little bit, I something that I've watched that I've observed about Robert, especially through his show Breaking New Ground, which I have a sense comes from you, is this perseverance and knowing that sometimes things get tough. Sometimes things do not go according to plan. My jaw was just dropping when I was watching Breaking New Ground, hearing about the delays and the overages of these mind blowing amounts needed in the short time to make them. And so I wonder if you could speak to, like, within your family, where do you find the strength to persevere, and what does that look like? If you peel back the curtain for somebody to say, when life is tough, how do I keep going?
It's an excellent question. The way that I taught that in the home is that, first and foremost, people aren't mind readers. You have got to be able to use your words in order for people to know what it is that you need or what you have to say. And if it's a young person to someone in authority, then you have to say it with kindness. And so in my home, you could not say, I don't know. I don't know. No, that wasn't acceptable. It was like, you have to know. Nobody else knows, but you know. So think about it, because you really do know. And I believe that one of the things also that I stressed to them throughout the years was that they could be anything that they choose to be. The choice was truly theirs. And then I would always back them up, regardless of what I thought or felt about it. But I was going to be their rock to be able to get them through it. And so, with that, and then Robert in particular was one who um, just always had a plan. And it was really interesting, because it wasn't like, if so this is where we're going, not maybe if this works, but when this works, we will go this way. or we'll go that way. So there was always another way to get what it was that you needed. And so the reason why I think Breaking New Ground was so instrumental in, if you really get into, it's not so much the building of a home, but actually the things that were like, you can't have that. And so what you have to do is then accept and then create the pivot from that. You don't dwell into the negative aspect of it. You recognize it. Does it hurt? Yes. You acknowledge that hurts. But I'm going to keep on going in spite of it, because I believe there's something on the other side that is better than what I dreamt of. And so, with that mindset, I think that that's how we get an upper hand on life itself, is just having enough vulnerability, enough strength to make it work. And Kayla, let me just tell you, every day that you rise up, that's a gift, because you didn't have to. You really didn't. And so I encourage people, the mere fact that they were given the gift to rise up the next day, take it and run with it, because that's how you survive life. It's a choice that you make, and you truly want to choose joy.
Mm, thank you. As we are starting to wrap up here, I would love if you could speak to someone who feels like they are at the start of whatever season they're entering. So maybe it's a season of being a new mom or a new entrepreneur, or maybe they're entering the second or third half of life, and that's a new season. And so what advice do you have, or wisdom really, do you have to someone who's starting a new season and maybe feeling a little wobbly in that?
I believe that's so interesting, because I am starting a new season myself. And I have to say, the journey to doing that is really helping me get through, because I'm a little wobbly, a little nervous, but I am betting on myself that I can do it. But I have two very special people in my life who love me beyond measure. And I want to be there and show them that I can do this. And so I encourage people who are starting something new to really find community in someone who is near and dear to them, and create a bond and a relationship that will help them conquer, beat down the walls. Beat down the walls. You have to have someone in your pocket to help you when the time gets bad, or when you need that extra push, or you just need the little bit of encouragement. There's someone in your life. Find that person and just get them on that train with you and ride it together, because that's how it works. That's how we're created. It's to build community, to have partnership. And you said something very vitally important, and it makes it told this also to my sons. I tell it to young people all the time. The best person you can bring to a relationship is you, 100% of you. So 100% of you has searched out and found another person who is 100% themselves. Bringing them together will create a bond like no other. So that's what I just encourage to people, to love themselves.
Brilliant. I love that. And apt for a shameless plug for the coaching world in general, to find someone. Like, I love having someone in your life who's meaningful for you, and having someone in your corner who sees you in the highest vision of you requires you to hold that for yourself, and is only committed to holding that for you too. And I am so grateful for the gift that I've got to have for you and Robert and the whole Strengths on Stages team. Like, sometimes I can just hear Robert saying, like, no, ma'am, we're not going to think that thought. I can just hear him saying that to me. Like, we would not think that thought, because that thought would hold us small. And we're just not going to do that. And I know it's the gift that I get to give to my clients too, that sometimes they show up, because we're human, right? We show up wanting to curl into a ball and hold us small because we think it's safe, or that's how we'll be loved or belong. And the truth is that no, ma'am, we are not going to hold ourselves small, because we're here for something bigger. So I know that is who you have been for yourself, for your family, for your clients, for me. And what an honor it is to have people like you in the world doing that work.
Thank you. It's so important. It's so important. I was thinking of a situation where I'm a 24-year breast cancer survivor, and I remember the day that I got diagnosed, and I was leaving the doctor's office, and I felt like I was fine, and so on and so forth. And so through the whole gambit, everything worked out well. But I then became an educator of women to do their breast exams. And so if they weren't going to do it for themselves, I always employed them to do it for their children or their grandchildren, or do it for somebody else. So it's important.
Congratulations. Thank you for sharing that celebration with us, and that reminder that start wherever we can start. I would love for it to be for you, whatever the choice you're making. Choose it for you. And if you can't, if you won't, choose it for someone else, because it ultimately is still for you too, and for them. Yeah, absolutely. Elizabeth, you are a gift. My hope is that everyone gets to know you. And please go watch Breaking New Ground on Max. You can see Elizabeth. She makes numerous appearances, and you're going to just fall in love with her even more. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Kaela. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
It was so fun. Thank you. That was an extremely powerful interview with Elizabeth McNeil. I hope that you got as much juicy nuggets from that as I did. And before we go, I want to be sure that I arm you with some next steps. So if you are sitting here thinking that you're stepping into a new season for yourself, that you're wanting to find the person who for you will hold up that mirror and that vision of power, reminding you who you really are, if you're looking for your community, if you are knowing that this is the time for you to really lean into your perseverance, keep following us everywhere that the Live Your Yes Life world is. So we have a podcast, a Facebook group, and a book, all by the same name, Live Your Yes Life. You can get our book on Amazon. You can join us in the Facebook group. We would love to have you come and be in our world all over, so we can continue to grow our relationship together. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.